It was supposed to be an ordinary Saturday morning. I was repairing a loose fence post in the backyard while my wife, Jenna, headed out to her car to grab her gym bag. She was wearing her usual weekend gear jeans, a sweatshirt, and her sidearm holstered at her hip. We live in an open-carry state, and Jenna's a decorated Army combat veteran who served 3 tours overseas. Carrying isn't just legal for her, it's second nature. But apparently, it was also the spark for one of the most outrageous stunts our HOA president, Karen Whitfield, had ever pulled. I first noticed something was wrong when I heard Karen's voice, shrill and carrying across the cul-de-sac. I came around the corner just in time to see her blocking Jenna's path on the sidewalk, her phone pressed to her ear. Yes, 911? There's an armed woman in our neighborhood. She's threatening public safety. Jenna's brow furrowed, calm but clearly irritated. I'm not threatening anyone. You know who I am, Karen. You've seen me every day for the last 3 years. Karen's lips twisted into that smug, self-satisfied smile I'd come to loathe. We'll let the police decide if you belong here, she said, glaring like she'd just caught an intruder. I could feel the blood rising in my ears. This wasn't a misunderstanding, this was an attack. Karen had made it clear from the day we moved in that she didn't like Jenna, and now she had the perfect excuse to humiliate her in front of the whole neighborhood. I pulled out my phone and started recording, making sure to capture every word, every sneer, and the calm, steady way Jenna stood her ground. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the street. 2 squad cars rolled up, and the officers stepped out, hands resting near their holsters but faces neutral. Karen wasted no time rushing toward them. Officers, that woman, she pointed dramatically at Jenna, is armed and dangerous. But she stopped when the taller officer's eyes widened slightly. Then his expression shifted into something I didn't expect. Recognition. He looked at Jenna, straightened his posture, and gave her a crisp salute. Captain Reynolds, he said with a smile. Didn't expect to see you here. The other officer followed suit, saluting and addressing her as ma'am. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Wait, what? You know her? The taller officer turned to her, his voice cool. Yes, ma'am. Captain Reynolds served in the U.S. Army's 82nd Airborne and is a decorated veteran. She's fully licensed to carry and poses no threat to anyone here except, perhaps, to people who waste police resources with false reports. The silence that followed was delicious. Jenna thanked the officers for their service, and they responded with the kind of respect that made Karen's attempt at a power play look pathetic. I kept my camera trained on her face as the reality sank in here. Big public humiliation had just backfired in front of half the block, who were now gathering to watch. But the twist wasn't over. One of the officers quietly pulled me aside and asked if we'd be willing to provide a copy of the recording. Under our state's false reporting law, deliberately making a bogus 911 call about someone who isn't committing a crime, especially involving firearms, can lead to fines, community service, and even jail time. They'd already written her up for trespassing on the sidewalk in front of our driveway after Jenna told her to back off. But this was bigger. They were considering forwarding the case to the district attorney. Jenna, being who she is, didn't gloat. She simply told Karen, "Next time you have a problem with me, you can knock on my door like a neighbor instead of calling the cops." Karen's face burned red, but she didn't say a word. She just turned and marched back to her house. The entire walk of shame caught on my camera. The legal fallout came faster than even I expected. 3 days after the incident, an envelope from the sheriff's office arrived at our door. Inside was a formal request for my video footage to be used as evidence in the false reporting investigation. I burned a copy onto a USB drive, along with the timestamps from my security cameras showing Karen blocking Jenna's path and hovering on our property line while making her 911 call. It was ironclad proof that this wasn't a misunderstanding, was targeted harassment. Word spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. People who had been too afraid to speak up before started sharing their own stories. Mrs. Alvarez, who lived 2 doors down, admitted that Karen had once called animal control on her because her Labrador looked aggressive while wagging his tail. Another neighbor revealed Karen had tried to fine her for illegal flag placement when she put up a small POW, MIA banner. By the time the HOA board met for an emergency session, the room was so full people had to stand in the hallway. Jenna and I sat near the back, letting others speak first. One by one, residents recounted years of intimidation, bogus violations, and thinly veiled prejudice. It was like a dam had burst, the truth pouring out in a torrent. When my turn came, I didn't raise my voice or use fancy words. I just played the video from my phone on the projector. The sound of Karen's voice calling Jenna armed and dangerous was followed by the officer's immediate salute and formal greeting. A low ripple of laughter ran through the room, followed by a sharp, collective intake of breath when the officer's comment about wasting police resources played. Karen tried to defend herself, claiming she had no idea about Jenna's service record and that she'd been acting out of an abundance of caution. But Mrs. Lopez, a retired school principal and one of the longest-serving board members, leaned forward and cut her off. This wasn't caution, Karen. This was malice. And it's going to cost this HOA if we don't take action right now. The motion to remove her as HOA president passed in less than 5 minutes. No one, not even the board members she considered her allies, voted in her favor. Mrs. Lopez stepped in as interim president, promising to restore trust and fairness in the community. The meeting adjourned with a round of applause, and Karen left without looking at anyone, clutching her binder of bylaws like a life raft. The district attorney's office took the case. Thanks to the body cam and my video, the false reporting charge stuck. Karen was fined heavily, sentenced to 200 hours of community service, and ordered to complete a mandatory anti-bias education program. The sheriff's office also issued a no-contact order, meaning she couldn't approach Jenna or me for any reason. Life in the neighborhood changed almost overnight. Without Karen patrolling the streets like a self-appointed warden, people relaxed. Kids rode bikes without being told to slow down for safety compliance. Neighbors decorated their porches without worrying about approved color schemes. At the next block party, something we hadn't had in 3 years, Jenna was the guest of honor. The officers who had responded that day even stopped by, off-duty, to shake her hand and thank her again for her service. Jenna didn't boast or dwell on her vindication. She simply told our neighbors, "I fought for a country where people could live without fear in their own homes. That's all I want for this street." Her words hit harder than any gavel ever could. The last time I saw Karen, she was loading boxes into the back of a moving truck. No goodbye, no lingering glance, just the quiet retreat of someone who finally understood she had no power left to wield here. The house sold within weeks, and the neighborhood hasn't looked back since. What about you? Do you think standing our ground and letting the law handle her was the right move? Or would you have confronted her in private before it ever got this far?